The first sign came not from an official announcement, but from a stunned expression that palace insiders couldn't ignore. What should have been a routine protocol briefing reportedly left Queen Camilla visibly shaken. Within hours, whispers spread through royal corridors that a dramatic shift had occurred, one that elevated Sophie above expectations and left Camilla confronting a reality she never anticipated. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. At first, very few people understood the significance of what had allegedly taken place behind closed palace doors. Royal protocol reviews happen regularly, often attracting little public attention and even less media interest. Yet according to reports circulating among royal commentators and well-connected insiders, this particular review was different from the moment it began. Senior aides were reportedly summoned with unusual urgency. Schedules were adjusted. Meetings appeared to be rearranged. Even longtime palace observers claimed there was a level of secrecy surrounding the discussions that seemed highly unusual for what should have been a straightforward administrative matter. As details slowly began to emerge, speculation intensified. The reported focus of the review centered on ceremonial rankings and official precedence within the royal household. To many outside observers, such matters might appear symbolic or even insignificant. Inside royal circles, however, protocol is never merely about appearances. It represents influence, authority, trust, and position within an institution built upon centuries of tradition. A small change on paper can carry enormous consequences behind palace walls. What immediately captured attention was the growing belief that Sophie had become a central figure in these discussions. For years, she had quietly carried out engagements without attracting the constant scrutiny directed toward other members of the royal family. She rarely generated controversy. She rarely dominated headlines. Yet those who followed the monarchy closely had noticed something gradually changing. Sophie's presence at important events appeared increasingly prominent. Her responsibilities seemed to expand. Her visibility during key moments continued to grow. Individually, these developments seemed minor. Together, they painted a very different picture. Reports suggest that during the confidential review, questions were raised regarding ceremonial positioning and future representation of the crown. While no official confirmation emerged, royal watchers quickly began connecting recent public appearances that suddenly seemed far more significant. Why had Sophie been entrusted with certain responsibilities? Why had her role appeared to grow while others remained relatively unchanged? And most importantly, who within the institution had supported this apparent rise? The rumors only intensified when insiders allegedly described emotional reactions following the meeting. Some claimed there was genuine surprise among palace staff. Others suggested that the implications reached far beyond a simple protocol adjustment. What made the situation especially dramatic was the belief that Queen Camilla herself had not expected the outcome. If true, it would represent a remarkable development within an institution where major changes are rarely allowed to catch senior figures off guard. As speculation spread, royal commentators began examining years of developments that many had previously overlooked. Suddenly, old decisions appeared to carry new meaning. Public appearances were re-examined. Seating arrangements attracted renewed attention. Invitations, ceremonies, and official duties were scrutinized with extraordinary intensity. The more people looked, the more they believed they were witnessing the culmination of a process that had been unfolding quietly for years rather than weeks. And as the conversations grew louder, one realization seemed to unite both supporters and critics alike. Whatever had happened during that reported protocol review, it was not an isolated event. It appeared to be the latest chapter in a much larger story, one involving trust, influence, loyalty, and the future direction of the monarchy itself. But what shocked insiders most wasn't the protocol itself. It was the long chain of events that may have led directly to Sophie's remarkable rise. For years, Sophie quietly carried out royal duties far from the spotlight. While headlines focused elsewhere, she was steadily building trust, loyalty, and influence within the institution itself. Few realized that her dedication was positioning her for something far greater. As speculation surrounding the reported protocol review continued to spread, attention gradually shifted away from the meeting itself and toward the woman whose name suddenly seemed to be at the center of every conversation. Sophie had never been the royal family member who generated constant controversy. She was not known for dramatic public disputes, sensational headlines, or highly publicized conflicts. Instead, her reputation had been built through something far less glamorous, but arguably far more powerful: consistency. Year after year, engagement after engagement, she quietly fulfilled responsibilities that many observers barely noticed at the time. Yet within the monarchy, reliability often carries more weight than publicity, and those closest to palace operations reportedly understood that long before the public began paying attention. For decades, Sophie cultivated an image that stood in sharp contrast to the turbulence that periodically surrounded other members of the royal family. While public attention frequently shifted from one royal controversy to another, she remained focused on service. Those who followed the institution closely often described her as dependable, disciplined, and remarkably adaptable. She rarely sought attention for herself, but she rarely stepped away from responsibility either. That combination gradually earned her something that cannot be granted through titles alone: trust. Reports suggest that this trust became increasingly valuable following the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. The monarchy entered a period of enormous transition. Familiar structures changed, long-established roles evolved, expectations shifted almost overnight. During such moments, institutions often rely on figures who provide stability rather than excitement. According to royal commentators, Sophie became one of those figures. Her responsibilities reportedly expanded, and her presence at significant events became more noticeable. What once appeared to be routine participation increasingly looked like strategic inclusion. The change did not happen suddenly. That was precisely why so many people failed to recognize it. There was no dramatic announcement, no major declaration. Instead, observers began noticing subtle developments. Sophie appeared at increasingly important engagements. She represented the crown in situations requiring experience and discretion. Her role seemed to broaden while maintaining the same quiet professionalism that had defined her public image for years. The more responsibilities she accepted, the more confident senior figures reportedly placed in her judgment. Perhaps even more significant were reports regarding her relationships within the royal family itself. Over time, Sophie developed a reputation for working effectively across different generations of the monarchy. While royal households can sometimes become divided by competing priorities and personalities, insiders frequently described Sophie as someone capable of maintaining productive relationships throughout the institution. In periods marked by uncertainty, that quality became especially valuable. Rather than contributing to instability, she was often portrayed as helping reduce it. Palace staff reportedly viewed her in a similar way. Various royal commentators have suggested that Sophie earned considerable respect behind the scenes through her willingness to approach duties without unnecessary drama or demands. In an environment where trust must be earned over years rather than days, such qualities can have lasting consequences. Every successful engagement, every completed responsibility, and every demonstration of reliability quietly strengthened her standing within the institution. At the same time, public perception appeared to move in the same direction. Approval ratings reportedly remained strong, and many royal supporters increasingly viewed Sophie as one of the monarchy's most dependable representatives. What made this particularly remarkable was that her popularity seemed to grow without the aggressive publicity campaigns often associated with modern public figures. Instead, it emerged gradually through repeated demonstrations of commitment and service. By the time discussions surrounding protocol and precedence began attracting attention, Sophie's rise was no longer being viewed as a coincidence. To many observers, it looked like the natural result of years spent building credibility when few people were watching. Yet that growing influence becomes even more significant when viewed against another unfolding reality, one involving expectations, status, and a position within the monarchy that suddenly appeared far less certain than many had assumed. Yet Sophie's rise only becomes meaningful when compared with the complicated position Queen Camilla now finds herself facing. Royal protocol may seem like a collection of ancient rules, but within palace walls, rank determines influence, visibility, and prestige. That is why even a seemingly small adjustment can send shockwaves through the monarchy. To the public, protocol often appears ceremonial, a collection of traditions preserved from another era. Many see it as little more than a sequence of formalities surrounding royal events. Yet those who understand how the monarchy operates know that protocol is far more powerful than it appears. It is the silent language of status. It determines who enters first, who sits where, who represents the crown at major occasions, and whose presence carries the greatest symbolic weight. In many ways, protocol functions as a map of influence, carefully reflecting how the institution views itself and those who serve within it. That is precisely why recent speculation surrounding Sophie and Queen Camilla has attracted such extraordinary attention. The reported changes being discussed were never simply about names on a list or positions during ceremonies. According to royal observers, they touched upon something much deeper. They raised questions about standing, trust, and future influence within one of the world's most scrutinized institutions. And when such questions emerge inside the monarchy, every detail suddenly matters. The royal order of precedence has existed for generations. While it has evolved over time, its purpose has remained remarkably consistent. It establishes hierarchy and communicates the structure of the institution both internally and publicly. Every placement carries meaning, every adjustment sends a message. Whether intended or not, the position someone occupies often shapes how they are perceived by palace officials, government representatives, foreign dignitaries, and the public itself. A single ceremonial change can spark months of discussion, precisely because people understand that symbolism and authority are deeply connected within royal life. History provides countless examples of protocol becoming the center of controversy. For centuries, royal households have wrestled with questions of precedence, representation, and recognition. Disputes over rank have often reflected larger struggles involving influence and power. While the specific circumstances may change, the underlying reality remains remarkably similar. Protocol is rarely about protocol alone. More often, it becomes a reflection of deeper institutional priorities and evolving relationships behind closed doors. That reality helps explain why recent public appearances have been examined with such intensity. Royal watchers began revisiting engagements that once seemed routine. Seating arrangements suddenly attracted attention. Processions were analyzed. Invitations became topics of debate. The placement of individual royals during major events was scrutinized with a level of detail normally reserved for major political developments. What had previously gone unnoticed now appeared potentially significant. Observers pointed out that visibility within the monarchy is rarely accidental. The individuals positioned closest to key moments often become the faces closely associated with the institution itself. Appearances at important ceremonies create impressions that can endure for years. Repeated inclusion sends signals about confidence and trust. Repeated absence can generate equally powerful interpretations. This is why even the smallest adjustments can trigger intense speculation among those who follow royal affairs closely. The media quickly amplified that interest. Headlines focused on hierarchy, commentators debated precedents, experts examined long-standing traditions, and compared them with more recent developments. Every discussion seemed to return to the same central question. If Sophie's standing had indeed grown, what did that reveal about the monarchy's evolving priorities? And if those priorities were changing, what did that mean for other senior figures within the institution? As the conversation intensified, the contrast between Sophie and Camilla became increasingly difficult to ignore. One appeared to be benefiting from years of steady service and growing trust. The other suddenly found herself at the center of uncomfortable speculation regarding her position and influence. The more observers examined the details, the more the story seemed to expand beyond protocol and into something much larger. As observers examined the protocol details, attention quickly turned toward the woman standing at the center of the unexpected change. Those familiar with palace operations describe an atmosphere of disbelief. What began as a routine discussion reportedly transformed into one of the most talked about royal conversations in recent memory. As scrutiny surrounding the reported protocol changes intensified, attention naturally shifted toward the person many believed had been affected most directly by the development. For days, speculation continued to circulate through royal circles, with commentators, insiders, and longtime observers attempting to understand not only what had happened, but how it had been received behind palace walls. The discussion was no longer centered solely on Sophie's apparent rise. Increasingly, it focused on Queen Camilla and the growing belief that the outcome had come as an unexpected shock. According to various reports and interpretations emerging from royal sources, the atmosphere surrounding the discussions was far more emotionally charged than anyone initially anticipated. What had begun as a procedural matter allegedly evolved into something much larger. Palace aides reportedly found themselves navigating conversations filled with uncertainty, questions, and competing interpretations. While official confirmation remained absent, The rumors alone were enough to fuel one of the most intense periods of royal speculation in recent memory. At the center of those rumors was a claim that continued to attract extraordinary attention. Some insiders suggested that Camilla had not expected the developments being discussed. Whether those reports were accurate became almost secondary to the reaction they generated. The possibility that such an important adjustment could catch a senior royal by surprise immediately captured public imagination. After all, major changes within the monarchy are typically associated with careful planning, consultation, and preparation. The suggestion that events had unfolded differently created an entirely new layer of intrigue. As the story gained momentum, reports emerged describing tense conversations among palace staff and advisors. Those familiar with royal operations noted that protocol matters often involve extensive consultation because even symbolic decisions can carry significant consequences. In this case, observers claimed that emotions ran particularly high because the implications extended beyond ceremonial appearances. Questions of influence, trust, and future representation appeared to be woven into the broader discussion, making every detail feel more significant than it might otherwise have seemed. The emotional dimension of the story only deepened public fascination. Commentators began debating what such revelations might mean for individuals who had spent years building their positions within the monarchy. For some observers, the situation highlighted the challenges of navigating an institution where tradition and change often exist in constant tension. For others, it became a story about expectations and the harsh reality that even established positions can evolve over time. Speculation also intensified regarding how the information was delivered and who had been involved in the process. Royal analysts questioned whether the discussions had unfolded gradually or whether certain developments emerged unexpectedly during the review itself. The absence of clear answers created a vacuum quickly filled by competing theories. Every new report generated fresh debate. Every unexplained detail encouraged additional scrutiny. Meanwhile, media coverage continued to expand. Newspapers, television panels, royal podcasts, and online commentators all focused on the same fundamental mystery. Why had this particular protocol discussion generated such an extraordinary response? What underlying factors had transformed what should have been a routine administrative matter into an international talking point? The more analysts examined the situation, the more they became convinced that the story extended far beyond a simple adjustment within the royal hierarchy. Yet amid all the attention directed toward Camilla, another reality gradually became impossible to ignore. The reason this development carried such significance was not merely because of who appeared affected by it. Its true importance stemmed from the individual, whose position seemed to be growing stronger with each passing year. While debates continued over reactions, expectations, and palace dynamics, the deeper story remained centered on Sophie herself. But the real mystery wasn't how Camilla reacted. It was why Sophie had become impossible for the institution to overlook. As the monarchy navigates one of the most challenging periods in its modern history, trusted figures have become more valuable than ever. And few names are mentioned more frequently than Sophie's. The deeper royal commentators examined the questions surrounding protocol, the more they found themselves returning to the same conclusion. Sophie's growing prominence was not the result of a single decision, one meeting, or one moment of unexpected recognition. According to many observers, it was the culmination of years spent earning confidence during a period when the monarchy faced extraordinary challenges. In an institution where trust is often considered its most valuable currency, Sophie appeared to have accumulated a remarkable amount of it. Over the past several years, the royal family has endured wave after wave of uncertainty. Public controversies, family divisions, leadership transitions, and intense media scrutiny have placed enormous pressure on the institution. During such periods, reliability becomes more important than popularity. Stability becomes more valuable than attention. And individuals capable of performing their duties without creating additional complications often become indispensable. This is where Sophie's story begins to take on greater significance. Reports suggest that her responsibilities expanded steadily as circumstances around the monarchy became increasingly complex. What once may have been viewed as routine engagements gradually evolved into a broader role representing the crown itself. Royal observers noted that Sophie appeared more frequently at important occasions and increasingly found herself entrusted with responsibilities that required both experience and discretion. The pattern was difficult to ignore. With each passing year, she seemed to become more deeply woven into the institution's operational fabric. What made this development particularly striking was the way it occurred. There was no dramatic campaign to elevate her public image, no sudden effort to reposition her within the monarchy. Instead, her growing influence appeared to emerge naturally from years of consistent service. While others attracted attention through headlines and controversy, Sophie quietly built a reputation for dependability. Over time, that reputation became one of her greatest strengths. Public trust played an important role as well. Polls, commentary, and public discussions frequently reflected positive perceptions of Sophie's work. Many royal supporters viewed her as a figure who embodied stability during uncertain times. In an age when public confidence can shift rapidly, maintaining such a reputation is no small achievement. Yet Sophie managed to do so while largely avoiding the controversies that often dominate royal coverage. Equally important were her reported relationships within the family itself. Royal institutions function through cooperation as much as hierarchy. Individuals who can maintain strong working relationships across different generations often become vital to maintaining unity. Various commentators have suggested that Sophie earned respect not only through her public duties but also through her ability to navigate complex family dynamics with consistency and professionalism. In moments when tensions threatened to dominate headlines, she was often described as a calming and constructive presence. Palace confidence reportedly grew alongside public approval. As responsibilities increased, so did expectations. Yet observers noted that Sophie continued to meet those expectations without attracting unnecessary drama. Every successful engagement reinforced perceptions of competence. Every new responsibility strengthened the belief that she could be relied upon when the institution required dependable representation. By this stage, many royal analysts had begun discussing Sophie in terms that would have seemed surprising only a few years earlier. She was no longer viewed simply as a hardworking member of the family. Increasingly, she was being discussed as a key figure in the monarchy's future, not necessarily because of ambition, but because circumstances and performance appeared to have elevated her importance organically over time. And perhaps that was the most remarkable aspect of all. Sophie's growing stature seemed less connected to what she sought, and more connected to what the institution itself increasingly required. Yet the more observers focused on her rise, the more another possibility emerged, suggesting that the real significance of this story extended far beyond questions of rank, protocol, or ceremonial precedence. Yet behind the scenes, some insiders believe this story is about far more than one royal outranking another. Royal history is filled with moments when influence quietly changed hands long before the public noticed. Some observers now wonder whether this could be another one of those defining moments. The further the discussion moved beyond protocol, the more it began to touch upon a question that has fascinated royal watchers for generations. How does influence truly move within a monarchy? Contrary to popular belief, it rarely changes overnight. There is often no dramatic announcement, no official declaration, and no unmistakable turning point. Influence tends to shift gradually, almost invisibly, until one day observers suddenly realize that the balance has changed. That possibility now sits at the heart of the growing conversation surrounding Sophie, Queen Camilla, and the future direction of the royal family. Reports emerging from royal circles suggest that many insiders believe the institution is entering a new phase. The monarchy has experienced significant transitions in recent years, forcing senior figures to adapt to changing circumstances and growing public expectations. As those adjustments continue, trusted voices appear to be gaining importance. Experience still matters, tradition still matters, yet reliability, discretion, and stability may matter more now than ever before. According to several commentators, this evolving reality has quietly reshaped the internal dynamics of the royal household. Some observers point to the emergence of a new generation of leadership within the monarchy. While established figures continue to occupy important positions, attention has increasingly focused on those expected to help guide the institution through the years ahead. This does not necessarily mean formal authority has changed hands. Rather, it suggests that influence may be accumulating around individuals viewed as essential to the monarchy's long-term stability. In that context, Sophie's growing prominence begins to appear less surprising and far more consequential. Trusted advisors have also become a recurring theme within discussions about the monarchy's future. Throughout royal history, Periods of uncertainty have often elevated the importance of individuals capable of providing calm judgment and dependable counsel. Those closest to major decisions frequently exert influence that extends far beyond their official titles. As royal analysts examined Sophie's evolving role, many began asking whether her importance stemmed not only from public duties, but also from the confidence she reportedly inspired behind the scenes. At the same time, institutional priorities appear to be evolving. Modern monarchies face challenges that differ dramatically from those confronted by previous generations. Public expectations have changed. Media scrutiny has intensified. Every decision is examined through a lens of accountability and relevance. In such an environment, figures capable of maintaining trust become increasingly valuable assets. This broader shift may help explain why discussions surrounding Sophie have expanded beyond ceremonial questions and into conversations about the monarchy's future direction. For Queen Camilla, however, these developments have inevitably generated additional scrutiny. The more Sophie's role appeared to grow, the more observers began comparing the trajectories of both women. Fairly or unfairly, public discussion increasingly framed the story as a contrast between rising influence and uncertain positioning. Each new report seemed to add another layer to the debate. Was the monarchy merely recognizing years of loyal service? Or was something larger unfolding beneath the surface? Public fascination only intensified as speculation spread into conversations about succession, planning, and the future structure of the royal family. While protocol remained the immediate focus, many commentators suspected the real issue involved preparation for the years ahead. Institutions built to endure often think in decades rather than months. Every decision, every responsibility, and every trusted relationship may contribute to long-term planning that remains invisible to outsiders until much later. That possibility transformed what began as a discussion about rankings into something far more dramatic. Suddenly, observers were no longer debating a protocol review. They were examining the future balance of influence within the monarchy itself. And as questions multiplied, attention naturally shifted toward the individuals whose opinions, support, and confidence may ultimately matter more than any public headline. And as speculation intensified, attention turned toward the people whose approval carries the greatest weight inside the monarchy. Every major royal development raises the same question: who truly made the decision? Behind every protocol change lies a network of advisors, officials, and senior royals whose influence often remains unseen. As speculation surrounding Sophie's growing prominence continued to spread, many observers began looking beyond the headlines and toward the machinery that quietly operates behind palace walls. The discussion was no longer focused solely on what may have changed. Instead, attention shifted toward the people who may have helped shape those changes. Because within the monarchy, significant developments rarely emerge from a single conversation. They are often the product of consultation, evaluation, and careful consideration involving individuals whose names rarely appear in public reports. That reality has fueled one of the most intriguing questions surrounding this entire story. If Sophie's position has indeed strengthened over time, who recognized her value first? Who advocated for her expanding role? And who ultimately concluded that her presence had become increasingly important to the institution's future? These questions remain unanswered, yet they continue to drive intense debate among royal commentators and insiders alike. Palace advisors play a critical role in maintaining the monarchy's day-to-day operations, while public attention naturally focuses on senior royals. An extensive network of officials, aides, and protocol specialists often works behind the scenes to ensure continuity and stability. Their responsibilities extend far beyond organizing events or managing schedules. They help preserve traditions, advise on ceremonial matters, and evaluate decisions that may carry long-term consequences for the institution. Because of this, even seemingly modest protocol adjustments often involve substantial consultation before implementation. Senior royal households are believed to carry considerable influence as well. Each household operates within a broader framework, yet they remain deeply involved in matters affecting representation, responsibilities, and public engagement. According to royal observers, decisions that shape how the monarchy presents itself are rarely taken lightly. Every change is examined not only for its immediate impact, but also for the message it may send about the institution's priorities and direction. This careful approach has historical roots stretching back generations. Ceremonial planning has always played a significant role in royal life. Protocol is not merely about tradition for tradition's sake. It functions as a method of communicating continuity, authority, and stability. Throughout history, monarchies have used ceremonial structure to reinforce institutional values. As a result, adjustments involving rank, visibility, or representation often attract intense internal scrutiny long before the public becomes aware of them. Reports have suggested that consultations regarding recent developments may have occurred over an extended period. While specific details remain unclear, commentators frequently point out that major royal decisions typically involve discussions among multiple stakeholders. Various perspectives are considered, potential consequences are evaluated, recommendations are reviewed. Only then do changes begin to take shape. If Sophie's growing influence reflects a broader institutional consensus, it may represent years of observation and assessment rather than a sudden shift. This possibility has led many analysts to speculate about the individuals who may have quietly supported Sophie's rise. Some believe her reputation for consistency earned her advocates among experienced advisors. Others suggest that her expanding responsibilities naturally increased confidence in her abilities. Whatever the explanation, the perception that key figures within the monarchy value her contributions has become increasingly difficult to dismiss. Yet, even as these discussions continue, a larger debate has emerged regarding what all of this could mean for the future. Are observers witnessing a routine evolution within the royal family? Or does Sophie's apparent rise signal something more significant about the monarchy's long-term direction? The absence of definitive answers has only deepened the mystery. Every new theory seems to generate another question, and every question leads back to the same uncertainty surrounding the institution's future path. But even after the meetings ended and the discussions faded, one final question continued to echo through royal circles. The headlines may focus on rankings and protocol, but the deeper story is about the future direction of the monarchy itself. What happened behind palace doors may be remembered as a turning point far greater than anyone first realized. As the speculation continued and the debates showed no signs of slowing down, a broader realization began to emerge among royal watchers. This story was never simply about who stood where during a ceremony or whose name appeared higher in an official order of precedence. Those details may have sparked the conversation, but they were not what kept the conversation alive. What truly captured public attention was the possibility that these developments offered a glimpse into the monarchy's future at a time when the institution itself stands at a crossroads. For many observers, the reported protocol changes appeared significant because of what they symbolized, rather than what they formally altered. Throughout royal history, symbolic decisions have often revealed deeper institutional priorities. They can reflect confidence, trust, and long-term planning. That is why so many analysts viewed the discussion surrounding Sophie as something larger than a ceremonial adjustment. To them, it suggested that certain qualities, stability, reliability, discretion, and service may be becoming increasingly important within the royal family's evolving structure. Sophie's rise, whether viewed through the lens of public perception or palace dynamics, has prompted widespread discussion about what comes next. For years, she quietly fulfilled responsibilities without demanding recognition. Now, many commentators believe those years of dedication may be receiving acknowledgement in ways that few anticipated. If her influence continues to grow, it could shape how the monarchy approaches representation, engagement, and leadership in the years ahead. While no one can predict exactly what the future holds, the growing perception of Sophie as a trusted and dependable figure appears unlikely to disappear anytime soon. For Queen Camilla, however, the conversation presents a very different challenge. Regardless of the accuracy of the various reports and rumors, public attention has increasingly focused on how she fits into this changing landscape. Some commentators argue that adapting to evolving circumstances is a reality faced by every royal generation. Others believe the scrutiny surrounding her position reflects broader questions about influence within the institution. Whatever the case, the discussion has become impossible to ignore, and it continues to generate intense interest from both supporters and critics. The media's response has only amplified that fascination. Every report, every analysis, and every expert opinion seems to fuel another round of debate. Royal commentators continue examining public appearances, official duties, and ceremonial roles for clues about what may lie ahead. The story has become a puzzle, with observers attempting to piece together fragments of information in hopes of understanding a much larger picture. At the same time, questions about future palace priorities continue to grow. What qualities will define the monarchy's next chapter? Which figures will play the most important roles moving forward? How will the institution balance tradition with the demands of a rapidly changing world? These questions extend far beyond any individual royal. They touch upon the future identity of the monarchy itself. That is why this story continues to command attention long after the initial rumors emerged. It speaks to something deeper than protocol. It reflects the public's enduring fascination with power, influence, succession, and legacy. Every development is viewed through that lens. Every decision is interpreted as a possible sign of what comes next. And perhaps that is the ultimate reason this story resonates so strongly. Beneath the discussions about rankings, precedence, and palace procedures lies a much larger narrative about transition, trust, and the future. Whether the reports prove entirely accurate or not, they have sparked a conversation that reaches far beyond a single meeting or a single moment. They have encouraged people to consider how institutions evolve, how influence is earned, and how the future often begins taking shape long before most people realize it. And while the palace may never fully explain what happened behind those closed doors, the message many observers took away was unmistakable. The monarchy's future may already be taking shape in ways few expected. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.